Okay, I've had lots of requests to detail how I did the acoustic electric conversion on my kit. So this video will detail all the parts and what I did, what's necessary to do what I did. This is a regular old acoustic drum, acoustic head on top and a resonant head on the bottom. Pretty basic stuff. Now I'm going to take and convert this drum to electric. First thing we do is remove the head. Okay, now that the head's been removed, you can see I added a 1/4-inch jack to the drum. You can see on the inside there and how it's wired up. There's 2 leads. I've got a red and a black, one on the tip, one on the ring connector. This is actually a stereo jack, but for my toms I don't use all 3 contacts. I just use tip and ring because I don't need any rim triggering. I do on my snare, but I don't do it on my toms. I leave the resonant head on, and then I'll show you what the trigger assembly looks like. Okay, this is the trigger assembly. These are all parts that can be found at most hardware stores, so I'll kind of detail what the individual pieces are. I think I got all my stuff at Lowe's, and I'll give you the part numbers as well. The main support, this cross section right here, is made out of aluminum. It's 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch, and it comes in, I think, 3-foot lengths. At Lowe's, it's actually part 216100. So if you go to Lowe's.com and just search on that part number, you'll see exactly what that is. It originally silver, and I painted them flat black. The 2 circular things right here are actually electrical box covers. They're made out of metal also, and I painted them flat black just so they're not as seen inside the drum. And those part numbers are 303625. Again, search on Lowe's.com. That's Lowes.com. 303625, and you'll see exactly what they are. The 4 holes for the screws were already in place. That's part of the design of it. And I did have to drill through the center of the hole in the bottom one, you see, going through the aluminum bar. The reason you have these two plates is to be able to adjust the cone height. Once you mount this inside the drum, you need the cone height to be just right inside the drum. And I can show you what that means later on. But basically, through the plate, we have a bolt here. It's just a regular old flathead screw. You could use Phillips, obviously. Below that, there's a little lock washer. Underneath that, there's a regular washer and a nut. And you see the bolt going through to another nut and a lock washer again. Underneath, the regular washer and the nut. So basically, that's the assembly of that. I don't remember the size of these bolts, but you can probably figure that out for yourself. And again, this is used to adjust the height of this top platform to get the cone height right to sit across the top of the drum shell. So that's basically it. The cone on top, it's a typical electric drum head cone. I got mine on eBay, I think, from a user called Cone Trigger or something like that. Underneath it, it's a thick piece of 3M double-sided tape, and then the little adhesive that's attached to the cone, usually, and it's stuck on there right in the center of it. You see the 2 leads, the red and black leads. I went ahead and added these little quick connectors so I can take and remove it from inside the drum when I want to play the kit acoustically. I can just take and remove the triggers and then put them back in and plug them back in. These little solder connectors right here are really handy. You don't actually need a solder gun. The solder is built into it. You just put the wires in both sides and use like a heat gun, and it melts the solder, and there's even glue on the ends that makes a great seal. And a little zip tie there to keep it in place. On the end here, on each end of the support bracket dealie, are these little L brackets, and those are pretty standard stuff at Lowe's. That's part number 102894. Pretty basic stuff. You've probably seen those 100 times. So that's basically how that works. I'll show how I attach it inside the drum. Okay, inside the drum you have the lugs going around the drum. There's 2 screws typically, and I just take and remove the top screw figure out which direction you want to have your, where you want your support brace to go. And when you cut your aluminum bar here, you want it to be just, big enough to make the span, but not so big that it rubs the edge. You want to have a little bit of room there. And then the angle brackets are added to be the right distance to actually fit inside the drum. So let's go ahead and start by removing the top screw. One on each side. Okay, and first I just make my little quick connections here. Okay, and this just goes right across. And in my design, I use the bottom hole of the side brace on the side wall there. Just kind of get that going in finger tight to start with. And then the other side. Okay, because this drum is so small, I can't use it. I can't really get to that screw very good with a screwdriver. On the larger drums, it's a lot easier to get that nice and tight. So on the smaller ones, I just use a pair of pliers and just carefully tighten the nuts on each side, and being careful not to strip out the outside of the nut. Doesn't have to be crazy tight. Just go ahead and compress that lock washer that's built into those. That's good. Just make sure that's nice and straight. And the reason you want to have this those adjustments, like I said, the two platforms there, because you want to have the cone rest about an 1/8 to a 1/16 of an inch to an 1/8 of an inch above the top of the rim. If I was to push the stick across, I'm just barely hitting that. And then you have your mesh head that goes on top. I use 682 drums, mesh heads. Actually, the quality has just been outstanding for the price that they charge. I've had these for years, and they get a lot of use, and they still look brand new, no damage whatsoever. They're super strong. Okay. Just put the rim back on. The tightness of a mesh head does not change the sound of the drum electronically, obviously. You basically tighten down for what type of feel you want, what kind of rebound. You don't have to be as exact as when you're tuning an acoustic drum. I just try to get a nice even hand tension all around. Kind of check it every once in a while for what kind of tension I'm at, what kind of rebound I get, basically just the feel of the head. that's pretty good. And see, it's pretty quiet. Pretty quiet. I still have the resonant head on there because I keep those on, but you can see without the resonant head making any noise, mesh heads are nice and quiet. You can bang on these at midnight and not bother anybody. Okay, so right now it's not making any noise. What we need to do is plug it in. So I've got my 1/4 inch cable right here that's attached over to my drum module, and I'll show you the specifics of what I use right now. So where's my jack? There's my jack. Plug it on in. Okay, now that I'm all plugged in, and I'm plugged into my drum module, which is actually going into my laptop for my VST sounds. This is actually a Superior drummer you'll be hearing. Now the drum has an electronic sound that can be recorded or amplified or anything like that. And that's that. That's how the my toms are done. Basically, they're all done exactly the same as that. And I'll show you how the snare is just a little bit different. Okay, here's my snare. It's pretty much exactly the same thing. All the materials are the same. The only difference with my snare is I have an additional piezo in there. There's the cone, the regular cone that you saw in the tom, and underneath the crossbar I have another piezo attached, and this one is wired up so I can have rim triggering also. The vibration or the stick hits on the rim are transferred through the shell, through the bar, and get picked up by that piezo right there. Not as much as the head piezo, so there's some differentiation between the two. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the mesh head. On my snare, I do use a roll-in head. I find it's a better triggering than with the 682 and other heads that I've tried. So I'm going to go ahead and just reattach this head on here real quick, and I'll show you how this one sounds. Again, the tightening of the lugs is not as important as with an acoustic drum, as far as being, as even tension as possible across. I'm just tightening for feel right now. Like I said, feel and stick response on the mesh head. So let's go ahead and check it now. That's pretty good right there. Just kind of double check these. Make sure I didn't miss any. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I'll plug it in and show you how it sounds. So that's the snare, and I showed you the toms. Now I'll show you what I did with my kick, which is a little bit different yet. Okay, for my kick, I went a little different direction. I could have done a mesh head and done a cone trigger placed off center. You don't want to put a cone trigger right in the center of a kick drum, but I could have done the typical mesh head with a cone trigger for the kick, but I went a different direction by mounting a Roland KD8 inside the acoustic shell. So actually, that's a KD8 right there that's mounted inside, and I'll show you how I did that. Okay, so I've got all the lug bolts removed. I'm going to go ahead and take off the hoop and the head, which in this case it's just got I've got a hole cut out so the KD8 can stick through, and then I've also got a hole at the bottom so the bottom plate of the KD8 can fit through. Okay, now that I got the head off, you can see that I've just got a KD8 mounted inside there. This aluminum crossbar is the same as the aluminum crossbar used in the snare and the toms that I used, and then the L brackets on each side attached the same way to the back of the crossbar here. You can see a screw going through, and again, lock washer, a bolt, washer, nut, same thing on both sides. And then in the center, I've got 2 bolts that go through this, and they just happen to line up with one of the openings on the KD8. The KD8 is plugged in to a short cable wired to the 1/4-inch jack on the shell, just like the snare and the toms. Again, this is a stereo jack, but I'm only using 1/2 of it, just the tip and the ring. So that's basically it. I went with the KD8 because I like the feel of it. It's got a good solid feel, and the triggering is tried and true. I didn't have to worry about any mesh head and cone trigger, trying to get the proper feel on the head. I just went with the KD8. That was just the easy way to go. I still do keep a pillow inside to keep the resonant head on the front quiet, because when the KD8's getting banged on, the front head can still resonate and make some noise. So I want to minimize that. So I go ahead and keep a pillow in there. Just kind of stuck it down. Oh, by the way, the front of the KD8, the front support, there's 2 screws that are built into it that held like a little Velcro plate or something like that on the front. I removed the plate, used the same screw holes, and put 2 holes in the bottom of the shell with just bolt and nut, keeping that in place at the front. So it's rock solid once it's in there. So the pillow I just have sitting there just like that. And I had to have the front of this regular acoustic head cut out so that the mounting plate could stick out through the bottom, so the pedal attaches to it. I just kind of line that up right there. And I also have this little bit of batting right here that I place underneath the trigger, between the head right there, just to keep this from flapping. If it would move for any reason, it doesn't, buzz up against the KD8 right there, just to keep it in place just a little bit better. So then we'll go ahead and put the hoop back on also. Just like that. Make sure it's all lined up. Everything looks good, and then we just start putting the legs back on. Okay, the head's going on. Basically, I just need to get rid of the wrinkles in it. Don't have to worry about tuning because it's just in place for aesthetic reasons, and also to keep the pillow inside and all that kind of stuff. And mostly because I wanted the hoop to be on, so there has to be a head of some sort so the hoop stays in place. Okay, we're good and tight around there. Go ahead and put my pedal back on. Okay, that's back in place, and I'll let you hear how that sounds. This particular kick is in Addictive Drums. I liked one kick they had in there, so that's the kick that I use. Okay, so that was it for the kick, snare, and the toms. Basically, how the triggers work. This is my electronic setup that I use. I just use a regular old Roland TD10 as a trigger to MIDI converter. I sometimes use the sounds in the module, like if I'm having like a band practice where I just want to take my module over there and I don't have to bring over the laptop and all the other stuff. I can use the internal sounds in the TD10. But for the really high quality sounds, for recording and playing live, I use Addictive Drums and Superior Drummer that I have in the laptop there. Right there, that's Cubase running. And down on the floor right there is a little M Audio audiophile FireWire unit that connects to the laptop via FireWire. And basically you have the MIDI out of the Roland TD10 going into the MIDI in on the FireWire unit. It connects to the laptop via FireWire, and that's how you trigger the sounds inside the different VST programs. Like here is my Superior Drummer client, for example. And I also have Addictive Drums where I get my kick from, and I do some other various things from that also, like hand claps and things like that. So that's basically how I run my audio. If I'm playing in a really small place, a really small club, I'll use electronic cymbals. And then if I'm in a larger place, I use acoustic cymbals. I prefer that, but when I have to, I use the electronic cymbals just to keep the noise level or the stage volume down to a minimum. The little audiophile unit down there, the M Audio unit, is really inexpensive but good for live purposes in that it has 4 individual outs, so I can send my kick individually as well as a snare individually, toms, and then also a cymbal output if I'm running acoustic cymbals. So with those 4 outputs, I can send that to our sound tech, and he can have much better control of each individual item, kick, snare, toms, and cymbals to for EQing and leveling and all that kind of stuff. So it works out real well, and that's what I do. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks. Bye.